Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Mark Tuitert. Mark is a retired Dutch Olympic speed skater. He won gold at the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. He is also the author of the book, The Stoic Mindset, Living the 10 Principles of Stoicism, which will be released in Canada and the USA April 9th, which, yes, is today when this episode is released. In this episode, we talk about balancing hard work with enjoying life, courage and performance, luck and providence, and much, much more. He was a pleasure to speak with, and I hope this episode provides with you some wisdom. So without further ado, please welcome Mark Tuitert. Mark, welcome. I'm really pumped to talk with you. Like I said, we got one person in the audience here listening in, but it's quite early in my time zone. I think it's kind of midday for you, but welcome. Yeah. I'm excited to chat with you.
Great for having me. Thanks.
So obviously you are a person who deems excellence an important thing, and I would say excellence maybe in the worldly sense, but also in the moral sense, which is what the Stoics meant by excellence. I'm just going to read you, just to get you talking here. I'm going to read you this quote from Usain Bolt. I work hard and I do good and I'm going to enjoy myself. I thought that was a pretty interesting quote there. How do we strive for worldly excellence in life while understanding what's truly important?
Yeah, that's a good question. By the way, I interviewed Usain Bolt for my Drive podcast, and I really admire him as an athlete. He seems to get it down quite good. Striving for excellence, of course, is you want to be really good at something. And in a moral sense, that's not good or bad, obviously, if you look at it from a Stoic perspective. So what I write in my book, The Stoic Mindset, it's all about how I went about it. So for me, striving for excellence, there's a lot of joy in there. I like to get better. I love to get better. I love to learn. I love to strive and I love to win. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. So getting into life, make sure you become really good at something. You love what you do. These are all great things, I think, to aspire. But there's a caveat in the sense that if you become and you identify yourself with the goal you're striving for, then it can backfire, because then life is about winning or is about getting a result. And I think you have to separate these two. And I think the Stoics did this in a beautiful way. So you can, I think in reality, and that's what I write in my book too, you cannot strive every second of the day to be a morally excellent example of a human being, right? We live, we learn, we go about life. And I think to get into life, not holding back, but give everything you have, with your beautiful sides, the darker sides, the accomplishments and the failures, etc. I think that is what life is. So if you don't tie yourself to that end goal, not become a bad person or a jerk or a dickhead to reach your goals, I think that's something worth striving for. So that's what I try to do by winning an Olympic gold medal. I won that medal, and that was a great journey. But I try to not let it define me as a person.
Yeah, I can tell you as someone too that's seen athletes perform, and I'm nowhere near, a top level athlete, but I am an avid gym goer. I think when you see someone win and there's no humility with that win, like there's no character behind that win, it's like a bittersweet thing for the viewer. So like when you see someone win and they accept that with humility and really grace, I guess you could say, it makes that whole winning experience. Obviously it's good for the athlete to win anything. Everyone enjoys that. But then you think, well, what's one of the other goals for this? It's to inspire people. So what do you think about that in terms of like just that your character and your attitude in defeat, or in failure, which is also important, but also in winning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a big factor for you as a human being to lead a good life and be an example and aspire not only to do great things and as a result, but to show what you can be. And that all revolves around character, I think, because when I am doing business or when I'm in a competition with other people, it's people against people. You know, the real fight you're fighting is actually with yourself. It's not. Of course, I want to be better if I race someone, but we race as equals, as athletes, as people who have their goals, who have their journeys, and there's one person that can win. But the beauty in competition is that you try to get better, you try to learn. So if you cheat or you use doping or etc., that becomes worthless. Then that's not the competition. And of course, there's not an equal competition amongst human beings, right? The one is talented, the one has genetics, etc., etc. So that's how life is. That's what fate has in store for you or nature has in store for you. Um, so the fact of the thing is, I think the beauty in life is that you try to learn and you learn what fits you well in life to do so. So within competition and competing, that's what fits me. You know, I want to win. I was pretty good at speed skating. I loved what I do. So that was my journey in life. But it would be really monotonous if that would be my only journey in life. It was blinders on, winning a gold medal, and then life is perfect, right? Then I am good. Then people will see me as a great athlete, etc., etc., etc. And I think that's a trap of thinking that way. And a lot of athletes do this, and not only athletes. I think a lot of people do it. Like, if I reach that goal, then I will be happy. If I reach this, then people will think of me like good. And you will never, if you think like that, the reaching the goal, the gold medal, the result will never give you uh, that taste. No, it's always, I think, if you are humble, if you show character, also in defeat, also in winning, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I always look up to athletes and people who do that. That's, I think, what makes it inspiring, and I think that's what makes competition inspiring, right? It's a test of character, it's a test of dealing with setbacks, it's a test of dealing with competition, it's a test for your discipline if you work hard or not, it's a test for yourself in life. And that's what it's about the test, it's not about the medal.
Yeah, you mentioned there just about how it's important to have something else, like you're not just this unidimensional athlete.
Yeah.
And that's actually a reoccurring theme because I'm good friends with a guy named Quinn Everett, and he's a top national Canadian weightlifter, Olympic weightlifter. And there's also a guy, Jacob Saunders, who's an Olympic sailor. He competed, I think it was 2008.
Mm.
And they say the same thing, is that for them, obviously that part of them is important, but they also understood, just by having good mentors, that, well, yeah, that's important, but also what's going to happen after that.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. So for a lot of people, let's say most people aren't Olympians. I think we can say that, but people do this with their jobs as well, their careers. Like they'll work their career, and then at the end of it, they don't have anything else. Like it's like they've lost themselves through that journey, and when they get to
Yeah.
the end of it, they don't know what to do with that. So what would you say on that topic?
Well, you can do business, you can aspire to do great things in your life. But if you think, like, if I make that much money, or if that girl I like will fall in love with me, or etc., etc., if you chase these goals without reflecting on what they mean to you, without working on your character, on yourself, but just on the goals, you can reach that goal. I know a lot of people who reach great goals, money wise, status wise, etc. But I think there's a lot of emptiness if you look back on the journey towards that goal and you thought that goal, or having that girl, or having that man, or having that certain thing in your life will be peace for you, or you'll find peace in that, or you'll find happiness or joy in that. And that's the thinking the wrong way around, I think. So for me, when I quit speed skating is 10 years ago, I had a job interview for the first time in my life. And they would ask me, what are you good at? The only thing I could tell was I was really good at skating left turn laps, right? So everything I built, all the things I did and I became really good at were worthless within a couple of months after I quit speed skating. So, but the character traits I had, knowing that growing, learning, etc., being humble, being disciplined, all these character traits I needed as an athlete, uh, being a student of Stoic philosophy, which helped me as an athlete, were still there, and I could use and transfer them in the next thing I would do in life. And of course, I was an athlete. I thought, oh, give me a goal and I will reach it. And if I reach that goal, a new job, a new career, oh, then I will find peace of mind. And it didn't work out for me that way. I was struggling for 2 or 3 years. I'm like, whoa, it doesn't work this way. I cannot just set a goal and reach it and think I will find fulfillment in that. You really have to search for what really fulfills you, and that's not that end goal. It's not externals. It's internal, and that's the only thing I think can fulfill you. So it has to do with going out there, just doing the things you like to do and things you find interesting to do, and struggle with them. So within the struggle, that's what the Stoics, but also all the ancient Greek philosophers called eudaimonia. We call it happiness or translate it as happiness, but that's not quite a good translation. It's more like struggling, growing, learning. And I think that's that's a beautiful way to look at life. Um, that goal will find you. It's easy to set goals, right? You can have someone you want attention from, or you have a new podcast guest, or you can set goals, but the way you go about it and the things you find fulfillment from in your life, I think that's what really matters. The people around you, the love you resonate with, the negative emotions you can get out of your life, and that's a big part where Stoicism helped me. So there's room and freedom for positive emotions, um, and that's something you have to find out. There's no blueprint for it. There's no, oh, read a book about Stoic philosophy or follow that philosopher or that faith and things will be fine. It doesn't work that way. These are things you struggle with every day. So you, in some sort of sense, you gotta like that journey, like that struggle, because that's where the beauty and the magic happens. I think.
Yeah, I've never heard the word eudaimonia equated with struggle, and I really like that because I recently heard an academic, Leonidas Konstantakos. He wrote, actually, I have it right here. It's Being Better. It's a Stoic book,
Yeah.
but
Hi, Wendy.
yeah, it's great. But he talks about how the soul should be in tension. So like the
Yeah.
Stoic soul should be in tension, meaning like it's a physical soul. It's not like a supernatural soul, but that's such an interesting idea because when we think of tension, a lot of us are a little bit hesitant towards that. But if you think about it, you can't really do anything without tension. I use the analogy of a guitar often, like a guitar string. You have to, in order for that string to pluck and resonate with music, it has to be under tension. It has to be
Yes.
really struggling. But it's such an interesting thing, and it's almost a tragic idea of life that in order for you to really resonate, you have to hold tension. And that you can think about that in terms of responsibility, like you mentioned, growth, striving, struggle. And that's one of those
Yeah.
things I don't think people want to hear, but it's so true. If you want to have long-term fulfillment in life, you have to hold tension. You have to
Yeah.
just kind of embrace that struggle, because that is actually where the beauty is found.
I think that's a big part of it, and I think that's so inspiring about the Stoics, right? They're not like armchair chair philosophers or people who sit on a beach with a cocktail in their hand. You can do that too. That's nice sometimes, but these were all people. If you read about it, Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. Epictetus was a slave, became philosopher. Seneca was a senator, etc. These were all. Cato was one of the highest ranked members in Roman society. These were all people who struggled with their daily responsibilities, with their daily tasks, with their striving to be better. That was not like they were not sitting back, lay back, and like let the world pass, and we'll see what happens. It's uh, not let the world go. No, they were in life. They were embracing their struggle, a political struggle, a human struggle. And I think that's the beauty in life, right? It happens to you, and if you have a sort of life, we all have a life philosophy, even if we are not aware of it. We have some principles, we have some values, we have our own philosophy of life. So that's, I think, where you can look at the Stoics, like how did they deal with these challenges, with a pandemic, with wars, with Epictetus talks a lot about Olympic athletes, right? He makes a lot of comparisons with that. So that really hit me when I was an Olympic athlete. I was like, whoa, yes, this is so true. It's about values. What do you value? Do you look at a gold medal, or do you make sure you show courage and show up for the best you can? Do you point your finger at your coach? Do you point your finger at everybody else, or do you look at yourself and look at yourself? Hey, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I have to learn. Maybe I have to ask for help or search for a mentor or a coach who can help me become better, etc. So for me, that's where the tension lies. You mentioned, right? If you're a perfect sage, if you're like a god, and sometimes we think we are gods, like human beings. We think we can control everything. If we work hard, we do this. This will be the result. Like we're factually gods. No, we don't have that power. We have the power of our internal state of mind. We can do everything we want. We can be disciplined, courageous, etc. And look in the mirror and show up, and we have to mean it. It's not like some story we tell ourselves and do something else. And that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. But there's where the tension lies. So there is no life without tension. It's a life you choose, your struggle. Struggles will come, and there's beauty in that. There's no beauty in lying around doing nothing and just letting life pass you by. That's not where the growing happens. That's not where the learning happens. The learning happens in that tension field.
Yeah, and it really feeds in with this idea of courage too, right? Because it is a courageous act to talk about leaning into that tension in life, that struggle, that growth
Yeah.
consistently, constantly. That takes so much courage to do. Like there's a quote I can't remember. I think it might have been Seneca who said sometimes it's an act of courage even to live.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that feeds in with this idea of like sometimes it's, you're getting up in the morning and just embracing whatever life is throwing at you. It's such an act of courage. And I'm going to throw you another quote here. This one's from Muhammad Ali. He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life. So that's pretty interesting. So how do you think about courage, and do you tie it in? I often think about it in terms of like strength and fortitude, but like as an athlete, as someone who's aspiring for worldly excellence and moral excellence, how do you think of courage?
Yeah, for me, courage is the perfect antidote to fear, or the opposite side of fear, actually, because we all fear things. Like that's what I think the beauty of Stoicism with the capital S is. We don't push our emotions away. They are there. I can tell you, I feel fear when I'm at an Olympic final and I'm racing for gold and millions of people are watching. I was training for 12 years for that medal. I missed 2 Olympic games, so there's a lot of pressure on your shoulders, and that's a big pressure, an Olympic pressure. It also can be smaller pressures if you're standing in front of a crowd, or you have to tell somebody some bad news and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. This feels nasty. This doesn't feel right. And that's where I think courage comes into play. And courage doesn't mean you don't feel fear. Of course you can feel fear, but you can still act. You can still do it. And you have to overcome that fear, or overcome that hurdle, or overcome that obstacle that's blocking your path. So if I would give into fear right before an Olympic Games, I would be like, whoa, what should happen if I become last or fourth or fifth? Help. So I feel that fear in my body, but I can also release it. I can rationalize. I can say, hey, there is fear. I feel this. and this is normal. It should be fearful, right? I put a lot of effort into this. This hurts me personally. If I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm an athlete, if I put a lot of myself in something, my money, my time, etc., yes, it will hurt you personally. Yes, you will feel personal emotions because it's important to you. But you can be courageous. And for me, that's especially, I read a lot of Seneca right before the Olympic Games. I thought, yes, this is something I can work with. I can be courageous. I'm an athlete. I'm a soldier going into battle. I can do everything I want. I can sink my teeth in and and give everything I have. And the result is not up to me. What my competitors do is not. It's not up to me. With what these journalists write about me, that's not up to me. What is up to me? If that gun goes off, I give everything I have. I just release, and I focus on my training. I trust in my abilities, in my team, the people I work with. So I put that trust in myself, in my team. I show courage to counter that fear. And for me, uh, that attitude is so powerful. That's so powerful. That's it. You let go of the results. You let go of other people, what they might think of you. You dive deep into your heart, into your state of courage, and be courageous. And that sounds easy when I talk about it, maybe, but to do that, it requires training. I think it requires thinking. It requires contemplation, and mental fortitude to really um, do that in the situation when the situation requires courage.
Yeah, and it's to your point, it's something that we have to face every day, every day,
Yeah,
and more frequently. It's another one of those kind of half tragic truths. It's like, how do you improve your perspective and mindset on things? Like, you got to just get into that pattern. Every time you get a toxic thought, you correct it with something, and you might have to do that like every 5 seconds while you're getting
yeah,
started, right? Like, it can get pretty severe.
yeah.
Uh, um,
Yeah, you
I
can work with it. You don't always have to fight these thoughts. That's like a meditative practice, actually. Which, if you fight your thoughts constantly, that becomes a burden too for yourself, right? So you can let a thought be, just play with it and release it. Don't fight it, because being courageous, going out there is, all right. There's fear. I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to push it away. It's here, but I'm here too. My internal state of mind is here too. The thought is here. That fear is here. I can feel it, but I also reflected on courage. I learned how to deal with this. So don't push it away. It's here. I'm ready for it. Let it come.
It's also courageous sometimes just to sit with yourself and let those thoughts come in. You mentioned darkness at the start of the episode
Yeah,
there, and sometimes, like, that's something, not personally, because I tend to be a little bit more introverted, so I spend quite a bit of time alone and reading and contemplative practices. But for a lot of people, they'll distract themselves with social events, or with, they'll spend extra time at work, not for the purpose of work, but for the purpose of not being alone, of distracting themselves from facing some of these internal thoughts. Uh,
yeah,
and I talk about darkness quite a bit. I'm a big Dostoevsky fan, the Russian author.
yeah,
And how do you think about darkness as it comes into Stoicism? Because it's not
yeah,
something that the Stoics talk directly about a lot, but there's areas where they do.
yeah. Oh, I love Carl Gustav Jung. Also, I read a lot about him before for the Olympics. Right, the dark side. We all have our struggles, our internal demons, etc. And if you read Marcus Aurelius, you read through the lines, you read that he struggles. He has his dark sides. He has his temper. So it's not pushing it away. And I think the first thing you can do is try to come to peace with that. Like, it's there. You don't have to push it away. It's part of who you are, and that's okay. Um, but you still have the capacity to act. So you can act in a beautiful manner. You can act in a humble way. You don't have to give into the dark feelings, but you can use it, and you contemplate on that. So for me, uh, I'm a big fan of Tool. It's a metal band. They're from the US, and 46 and 2. That was on my headphones right before a race always, and that's based on a Carl Gustav Jung take. Actually, it's like stepping through my shadow, coming out the other side, 46 and 2 ahead of me. So for me, stepping through your shadow, it's like facing that obstacle what Marcus Aurelius talks about, right? put them into action, advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So what stands in the way sometimes is that tunnel of thoughts, or that tunnel of things going wrong, or we're not feeling quite well. And yes, what you say, it's so natural to want to get rid of that pain, and you can numb it with substances, you can numb it with maybe even training really hard, right? That can also be something you can numb it with. But I think there's a lot to it, that you can sit with these thoughts and these feelings, not push them away, but find. I think that's the beauty of philosophy, especially Stoic philosophy, that you work with these thoughts, and you can think about them, and read about it. How do you deal with this in a good way? And for me, dealing with these thoughts was not pushing it away, but putting something next to that. So being courageous, showing up, working together with other people, not alone. I'm not alone. If I win a gold medal, that's great for me. That's my goal, but I cannot do that alone. Yeah, we're a human being. We're social creatures, like the Stoics would talk about all the time. So we can address the way we think, contemplate our reasoning, and we are social creatures. So these two things, the Stoic would say, are really up to us. So yes, I work with my team, and I work together, because going through that journey together is what makes it worthwhile. If I win a gold medal and I'm alone, nobody's there with me, that's empty. That's not what I want. I want people to be there. I want people to support me, and I support them. And on the other hand, think about your reasoning. So where, if you sit with your thoughts, and they can be darker thoughts, think about your judgments. Like, why do you have these thoughts? What's your judgment about things that worry you? Why does that worry you? And where are you afraid of? These are all thoughts you can ask yourself. And mostly we find that a lot of these negative emotions, you hold with you, because they're part of how you look at the world, part of your judgment. You can reflect on that judgment. And I think that works that way. I was really angry with my father for 6 years. I didn't talk to him for 6 years. So there was a lot of anger in me, like also some darkness, and some, I wish he was not there in my life. I hated him, etc. And these are all pretty negative thoughts that don't help you to be a better person or get a better life. So in the end, I took the initiative to contact my father again, because I learned that it was my judgment, that the anger was inside of me because I thought my father was a bad father. I thought he did everything wrong, etc. So that judgment part was holding me back. And when I got into contact with him again, I asked him questions like Socrates did. We can think we know how somebody else works, but we don't. So I asked him questions, and that contact started to happen again. And for me, that was quite a relief, because I could let go of that judgment. That was up to me. I think he's a bad father. Well, maybe I should think again. Am I a better father later down the road? Am I a saint here? No, I'm not. I do all things wrong in life. And my father too. And that's what makes us human. So we reconnected again, and that anger faded away. So that for me is, I think, one of the beauties in Stoicism. Yes, we're social creatures. And yes, we can think about our own judgment of the world, and that's the capacity we have, and we should use to live a better life.
Yeah, the family stuff is interesting because it's not uncommon for people to struggle with people that are within their family, let's say their genetic family in particular.
Yeah,
And I found that interesting because, especially with your parents, because they share, you're getting half your genes from your mother, half your genes from your father. And
yeah,
there's a chance that maybe your subconscious is upset at the part of your father that's not genetically shared with you. But I've always thought, like, what an opportunity to have people that share more of your genetics than anyone else for you to learn more through yourself. I think we all go through these phases where we do struggle with our relationships with our direct family. And I think maybe part of that is why it's because they're so similar to us
yeah,
that they, Carl Jung also said something about how we're mirrors of each other.
yeah,
And I think our family or genetic family are even more so mirrors to ourselves. And yeah, such a humbling thing. I mean, I'm really glad you were able to reconnect with your family, or your father in particular, because it is something that I think a lot of people just struggle with it and they avoid it. And
Yeah.
I think in avoiding that, I think you're avoiding confrontation with your darker side as well, which is confrontation with yourself. So
Yeah.
it's actually a bit of a cowardly move, I suppose you could say, to not to kind of like put that relationship somewhere else and not try and address it. Of course, with the caveat that there are some situations, of course, where, things can get pretty bad between people in general, but as a percentage, that's such a small percentage, right?
Yeah, it's for sure in well put. And for me, there's in Stoicism too and I think it's true. Like there's a mirror of yourself, of course, in your near family, and that happens with my kids now too, right? You see them act in a way, and they're like, "Whoa, I know that, I know that behavior from someone," and could be me. But I think that family part, that's where a lot of yeah emotions happen on the love side, but also on the other side. So I think there's a beautiful Epictetus really writes about this, and the Stoics write about this too. Like accepting your fate is also accepting the parents you have. You could have wished other parents. You could have wished a different life. That's not the reality you're facing. Your parents are your reality, and you can wish the reality in a different way, of to be in a different way, but that would hurt you. That's not an option, right? Logically, that's not possible. So they are there, and the challenge for you is not only accepting that they are there, but even loving that they are there. To love where you come from, with all the things you didn't get, with all the things that hurt you, with all the things you're mad at and don't feel fulfilled by, etc. So let go of all of that and try to be happy and love what you have in life, reality, and accepting that. I think that's hard, maybe the hardest thing to do, but there's so much space and freedom in that thought. And for me, that opened up my whole life with my mother and my father. Right, I didn't have to fight them, and I actually, that's true. You're fighting yourself. You're holding that emotion within yourself, that darker emotion that hurts. That, and maybe it's hurt, and you lie on top of that hurt. You lie anger, etc., etc. So my life got better when I did that and reconnected with my father and let go of my judgment. So for me, that was a better way to live. And as an athlete and a person, I I became a better athlete too. So that's not the main goal. My life got better, so that would be a stoic goal. But as a side effect, I, I became a better athlete. I became better at what I did because I knew how to skate fast. I knew what a professional athlete, being a professional athlete, meant. But I was still cramped up. I was still fighting something. So now I could release that, and I was more relaxed, and I was enjoyed life more. So I think that's sometimes what gets missed in Stoicism or in philosophy when it gets really academic. It's like if you can get rid of that negative energy, that darker energy, life frees you up, and you have so much more room for joy, for excitement, for positive emotions.
Yeah, I'm just and just
Yeah,
being able, and
yeah.
if you're carrying, put it another way, if you're carrying tension in your soul that is not good tension, you're losing the ability to carry positive tension.
Oh yeah, I guarantee that it works like that. I think it works like that. For me, if I cramp up a little bit and there's some disconnect in my body, it will it, it will hurt my back. So I had back injuries, and sometimes when I didn't address this, I was unstable in races. I couldn't really pinpoint where it was because my skates were good. I trained well, but some strange things happened. So I was not relaxed, not in imbalance in my life. So when I cramp up and my hips are a little more stiff, my back is a little more stiff. I cannot make the powerful strokes I need to do a great 1500 meters. So if my push would be sideways and it would be like this or that, like if my hip would move a little lower and I could push 5 centimeters more sideways, my push will be longer. The transfer from power will be greater, so I will skate faster. So it ties down to these little things, and for me, that's sort of a holistic approach. Like my whole body and mind, they're one, right? If I am more relaxed, and if I can use both sides, my body and my mind and my soul, for that matter, to become a better person, a better athlete, they work in unison. They're not separate parts.
In one of your TED Talks, you speak about how quickly you had this. I really like that you did this. You had this recording of the beeps, and the
Yeah,
beep represented everyone going over the finish line, and
yeah,
they were so close together. It's just unbelievable. And I've been playing with this idea of luck in Stoicism,
yeah.
and luck, and you can think maybe luck or mere chance or providence, fate, free will. You can kind of group all these ideas together. But it's such an interesting thing that, like, how do you think about luck, and how do you think about providence, and how do you think about, like, just obviously there's things not up to us, but then the Stoics were religious in a sense, in the sense that they did believe in some kind of providential fate. I
Yeah.
recently read this book called Bilbo's Journey, which is about the Tolkien's work, Lord of the Rings, and The
Yeah.
Hobbit, actually. And this is, he wrote that through a Christian lens, so there's a bit
Hmm.
more of that angle to it. But I thought it was an interesting quote. Luck is not merely chance, but is evidence of meaning and purpose in the cosmos. And so I
Yeah.
don't know quite what to make of that, but I think it's very interesting. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think I haven't looked at it at luck. For me, luck is also trying, failing, and not be lucky. So I think luck is also chance, and it will even out somehow. I really believe that. So if I was unlucky for a lot of times, I had my share of misfortunes, my struggles, etc., etc. So for me, everything came together in the race I did in Vancouver. So I had a great pairing. I had great timing. Everything came together at that moment. And yeah, is that luck? Well, I worked for that for 12 years. So sometimes you think, right? Yes. Sometimes it had to be this way, right? That's something I cannot grasp rationally, because to be that way is that it's not up to me. So what I try to do is look at it. It's I don't necessarily look at it right before the race, feeling like if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But I thought I worked on this. All the signs are green, so the last sign is up to me, and it's sort of it's not like, oh, I have to do this and this and this and that. It's more like I uh, I surrender to this moment. I surrender to the outcomes. I surrender to everything happens. I fall back on my training. So I surrender. It's not like I surrender to the world or logic or fate. I also surrender to my training. So I think it's if I didn't do that training, I didn't dare to surrender probably. But I worked hard. I was disciplined. So I dared to surrender to my team, surrender to everything that happened around me. So for me, those two go hand in hand. It's not like I live. So I think, and that's also where the Stoics hint at, right? It's not like you're like surrender to yourself in life and see what happens. No, you surrender to the outcomes. You surrender to the logos, to God, to call it what you will, to fate. That's not up to you. But the couple of things that are up to you: it's to be disciplined, to be courageous, etc., to the cardinal virtues, to be wise. um, if you act in that manner, um, it becomes possible to surrender to the outcomes. So I think it's a two-way street, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they use the term in the book, which I like, as biased fortune. And I've been playing
Mhm.
around with that idea. I quite like that because it's not a perfect equation. Obviously, everyone else that you competed against, they worked hard too.
Yeah.
Maybe there were some missing elements. Maybe you did things different. But like anyone that competes at that level, hard work is not an issue.
No.
But yeah, it is. It's an interesting thing because it's if you act appropriately, you bias fortune in your favor, but you don't guarantee it. And I think the reason is because you're not just you. Like you are you in relationship to the rest of the cosmos. And
Yeah.
so maybe obviously, so how it worked out in the end for you is that you won that gold medal. And from a cosmic structure perspective, maybe that's what had to happen. maybe that's the way that it had to be, given everything that happened, all the way that each competitor
Yeah.
acted in leading up to that event. So yeah, it's there's no such thing as a perfect equation. If you work hard, you're not guaranteed results.
No,
But if you
no.
have a good character, it seems that you do kind of bias things in your favor, and that accumulates over time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a trap in that way of thinking too, because it's if you would see that as your goal, right? If I have a good character, then the world will revolve around me. So I think, yeah, working on your character is the that's it, right? All the externals that come with it are not. It's not important. So whether I would be fourth or last, I think I try to divide these two things. So for me, it's not. I think we are connected to each other as human beings, to the cosmos, to a logos, but I don't think of it as like a sort of. And I think maybe that's because we have Christianity, of course, from a couple of hundred years after Christ up to now. Um, I think the Stoic idea of God within you, within everything, I think is more powerful than a dogma of I believe this. It doesn't really, and I think that's what philosophy is. I don't believe it to be this way. I can philosophize about it. I don't know. I don't know a lot of things, like Socrates would say, right? The only thing I know is that I don't know. So I think that's the beauty in there. I don't know if it's luck or not, if there's a providence or not. I don't know, um, and I don't believe in that sense. I work with what I have, and I think it's really powerful to reflect. And what I feel, of course, is there is a connection. Of course, we work together as people, as human beings. We have our thought patterns, etc. So yes, I think we're all interconnected. But how this actually works, I don't know. I try to not work against it, but work with it and surrender to it. And I think that's the hard part because it's contradictory or counterintuitive by how you get somewhere. If you're really disciplined, you work really hard, you think you can control everything, right? You just work harder and be more accomplished. But the last part, and that's important, of course, to get somewhere and work hard. That's great. But the last part is surrender yourself to what you do. And that's, I think, the soul part, right? If you're an artist, make great music or write great things, surrender to what you do. If you're an athlete, make sure you're really fit and capable when you're at the starting line, but surrender yourself to to life, to the cosmos, to fate, how you want to call it. And that also should count for the other side if it's a negative outcome, right? I write in the Stoic Mindset in my book about Bibian Mentel. She was a snowboarder. She was going to the Olympics, but she found out that she had cancer in her lower leg, which had to be removed. And her internal state of mind was like, okay, this is bad. But they had to cut off her leg, but she was still glowing with life, with the things she wanted to do. So she made sure snowboarding became a Paralympic sport. She won three gold medals in that sport, and she did a lot for Paralympic sports for young kids with disabilities. And she knew she was going to die the last 7-8 years of her life, and she never let down. She was always positive, always radiant with being driven, with doing great things. So I thought that's a beautiful thing too, right? So both things, if you look at it negative or positive, it shouldn't matter. If you win or lose, it shouldn't matter. If you are in a jail cell or not, it shouldn't matter. And that's, of course, really hard to do in real life, but we have examples of it in Stoicism and in life. So I really look at these examples for inspiration.
It's really curious too, because you take that example of someone losing their leg and being unable to compete. Like if she would have, say, locked herself up, become depressed, isolated herself,
Yeah.
got really, just let's say the understandable response.
Yeah.
Everyone would look at that and say pretty much that, yeah, that's understandable. That's a
Yeah.
really hard situation. And it's interesting because a lot of times I feel like we tell ourselves responses, we convince ourselves that because they're understandable, it means that it's acceptable.
Yeah.
And like it might be something as simple as, okay, your coworker, steals something off your desk. So, well, it's understandable. I'm just going to steal something off their desk.
Yeah.
It's like, well, but is that's not the question. The question is it the appropriate response? Like, is this the courageous response? Is this the well, yeah, the appropriate response? I was going to say virtuous,
Yeah.
but so it if she would have done let's say the understandable thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
we wouldn't be talking about her right now. But
No. No.
because she had that courage and because she leaned into that and
Yeah.
she accepted the cards that life gave her, here we are talking about her courage and
Yeah.
having inspiration from her.
Exactly. That's what Marcus Aurelius told us, right? In his meditations, he says, if somebody else is able to do that, you should think of yourself too, that you are able to do that. And I think that's where inspiration comes from, and that's what makes it so beautiful. So, if somebody would not have the normal response, so to say, it's not like you cannot judge them really. That's understandable, but there's also another response you can choose maybe and look for that. And there's there's of course there's nuance in there. I had a mother who was severely depressed for 10 years before she committed suicide in 2012, which is really hard to deal with, of course. But she would dive into a depression, and you can tell. I told her all about Stoic philosophy, about mindset. It didn't help. So, and I don't judge her for it. It's like I couldn't help her, I couldn't save her, and that's, you want to do that as a son. So there's all kinds of examples, and for me, I try to hook onto that example which I talked about BBM Mental. um, I think if we can look at that and try to not judge people for, like my mother, for not doing that or not being able to do that because she wanted to live, but look at the inspiration, the example of how, if something would happen to me, or if fate would strike me a terrible blow, I can look at that for inspiration and think of it. Hey, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can be more like her, and I can also look at my mother with love. But I know that dying is not the worst part of life. Actually, it's like not living, and getting deeper in a hole, or in a thinking pattern that doesn't help you. So if I notice that, or I notice people going there, I would try to help them, or try to make sure that they get help, etc. So for me, that is what living means. So that's what I learned from the death of my mother, but also from a great person like Bibian, that the love for life is really important. The the will to live, um, and to make it a beautiful work of art, is, I think, a challenge that's maybe it's the most profound challenge we have in life. And
Yeah.
that's really hard if you if you have cancer or suffer from depression, right? So I can easily say or write in my book how to do that, but I still have to show it when fate would deliver me a blow. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, the thing I try to imprint in myself, what the Stoics talk about, right? You can talk all you want, but always reflect on yourself, if it's really the case, etc., etc., and how do you deal with that?
Yeah. That was very, very, very sorry to hear about your mother there. And I'd like to maybe poke your brain about that a little bit, because this
Yeah, sure.
idea of just of, I guess, loving people, of being that supporting figure for them, being a part of their lives. I heard this guy called John Deloney, and anyways, he said this interesting thing. It was something like, it's not your job to fix people, it's your job to love people. And it's such a hard thing when you're trying to help someone, perhaps, that you really care about, obviously, and
Yeah,
and that is part of that loving journey. But ultimately, you gotta, like you said, you gotta surrender to the fact that they have their own agency, they're their own person, and
yeah,
you can really, all you can really do is just leave your light on. Just say, listen, if you want to come chat with me on my porch, I'll leave the light on, you can come chat with me. But ultimately, like, you're on your own journey. You can't force someone to get on the Stoic journey or the Christian journey or whatever you think the antidote to life is. You
No.
can't do that. So how do you manage that internally and externally, especially now that you're a father? Congratulations
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Well, that's not a really hard thing to do, to be, but, but thank you. It's for me. It's I think that's a really hard part, because we're social creatures. For me too. I love my family, my friends, etc. So if somebody suffers, of course you want to help them. But exactly as you said, I think what you can do is leave the light on. I know people. I've been on my journey in life. I know some roads to take with good advice, so I can put people on that road or on that path. That's what I can bring, or I can listen to people and love people, exactly like you said. But it's a really hard part to let go. And my kids are 10 and 12, but I think we talk about this, me and my wife, about how that works out, because they're their own people, they're their own persons, right? There are a lot of parents who try to push them into a mold, or try to be to feel or be the to see, like, grow. Of course, that we connect them with the values we have, but they're their own person. So, and I know people who cannot save their own children, so or want to save their own children, and that's of course a different agency. If you're a parent, you're responsible for your children. That's different than you're a child towards your parents, like I had with my mother. But even in the end, there are so many things that are not up to you, and we try to control or help people or save people with from love. But love can also mean, exactly, leave the light on, be there, and release or let go. And I had to do that with my mother, actually. The hardest thing I had to do in my life was to call my mother up and ask her not to come to Vancouver, not come for her not to come to the Olympic Games, because she was already severely depressed. She couldn't handle the traveling emotionally or physically. So I had to make that choice. I had to say to my mother, please, you have to stay at home. And that was really hard. It was a really tough thing to do. But what I learned by my parents, who were struggling each other in their divorce, by not speaking to my father, by also struggling with my mother, is that it's, in the end, this life is not about gold medals. It's not about chasing goals. It's about your own struggle, your own path, finding your own path in life. And you meet great people on that journey who you love, and that's great, but you're on your own path. And you have to make your decisions. You have to put your boundaries up. You have to know where you want to go and with whom. So for me, I love my mother still to this day. She isn't here anymore. But I made that choice, and I still stand by that choice. And I don't feel guilty about that choice. It's a choice I made for myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. I called my mother the first thing after I won Olympic gold, and she couldn't share that joy with me. And I thought, wow, this is. Can you imagine how somebody suffers from depression if they can't even share a joy with you? And she knows my story. She was part of my story, a big part of that. So that must be such a high degree of suffering. I can't even imagine. But that's her suffering and her journey. I cannot save her from that. I tried, but I can't. Um, and I think that's when you talk about, or we talk as Stoics about things you can control. Yeah, sometimes you cannot save people, and it's an act of love to be there, but not to step in and to let go. Um, and I think for me, that's the hardest part in life. That's so hard.
Yeah, the surrendering is quite hard, and I like the compassion you have for her, because it's not, hey mom, I'm mad at you because you can't be happy for me. It's, I feel bad because you are in a situation of suffering so intense that you cannot feel joy for
Yeah.
for me. And it's a very it's a very beautiful thing. Just wrapping up to the end here, I wanted to ask you a ridiculous and paradoxical question, but it's an interesting one to explore, I think. How do we take life seriously while not taking life so seriously?
Yeah, you have to take life seriously on a certain things. I think if you talk about character or love with the people around you, you can take that seriously. But I think you have to look at it from an absurdic or absurdistic, how do you call it in English, standpoint. Like, I love humor. I love a laugh. We shouldn't take ourselves so seriously, and that's, I think, where a view from above comes into play, right? I call it drone shots from your life in my book. Like, if you're flying on a drone, and you will get higher and higher and look at yourself, and it's quite funny, right? We're here on a planet talking to each other through a camera. You're in Canada, I'm in Holland. I go eat lunch with my family after a couple of minutes right now, and we're all traveling the world. We're part of a big world on a rocky planet somewhere in the universe. That's crazy. We die. We are bones and dust after that. If I'm an Olympic champion or not, if that's absurd. So you better laugh at it, right? And when we try to use philosophy to make great choices and wise choices so we can lead a good life for us and others. And we deal with this thing here we got, right, with our brains and everything that's tied to that. But I think the other part is to let go and enjoy life and enjoy a laugh. So I think a lot of people are way too serious all the time. Especially when you look at the influencer side. I'm busy with health. I train 4 or 5 times a week. I make sure I eat good, sleep good. But if you treat life as a protocol, I pointed, and I have my whole life planned out with this hour I do this and this I eat, and etc. etc. Life becomes like living a protocol, and I don't believe that's what life's meant to be. I try to be more free in my thinking, in my exploration, in looking at things from different standpoints. And I think there's beauty in that. So looking for beauty, music, friends, love, laugh. Yeah, we should do that more often, probably, instead of, and that's counterintuitive a little bit with philosophy, right? With thinking, with being serious, etc. But it doesn't have to be that way, actually. If you put life philosophy to the test and you free yourself up to not live through a protocol or through one-sided vision or through one tunnel of way of thinking. I think that's, if you do that, then there's so much space to enjoy life in all different ways. And that's not good or bad in a moral sense, but that's actually where 80 or 90% of your life revolves around.
Yeah, I think it's like an integrated Stoic who can, they're really focused on what they're doing. They take pride in, say, their work or their family life, and they
Yeah.
care. They care about what they're doing, but then
Yes.
when something, as you said, absurd happens, they can just laugh at it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's a sign of, okay, this person's got it figured out.
Exactly. That's exactly that. If you can laugh about it, from, I have with my wife, or we encounter problems too, and with my friends, hurt happens, physical pain happens, emotional pain happens. But sometimes it's so great if you have people around you and you look at it and like, we can just laugh about this. This is crazy. What are we doing? We don't even know what we're doing. We try. We try to make sense of it, and of course, we try to know what is really worthwhile to to adopt in our lives. That's a serious thing. But sitting back laughing at how stupid things are or how absurd things are, I think that's such a great thing to do.
That's a wonderful place to end, man. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you. That was a really really interesting conversation. Just want to thank you for coming on and give you an opportunity. I know you got a book coming out, which
Yeah.
I'll mention that at the start of the episode. But yeah, where would you send people to check out your work? I'm really excited. Your book's coming out early April, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. April the 9th in the US and Canada. Yeah, you can check me out on my website. It's a different name to pronounce in English, but Mark with a K. Tuitert, you say it, it's Tuitert .nl. So you can check out my website or my social media handles, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm pretty keen on using LinkedIn or X. So yeah, and let me know what you think about the book, The Stoic Mindset. It came out in Holland here 2 years ago, and I love for people to read it and interact with it. So I'm really curious what you guys think over there on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. We'll definitely pick it up, and yeah, I'll let you know for sure what I think. But I think you got a really well-rounded idea of stoicism. You know, I think you grapple with the more spiritual elements of it, which I like, and a lot of
Yeah,
people do avoid that, and I think it's at a cost to them to avoid those parts of stoicism.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it. And thanks again so much. Go enjoy lunch. I'm
yeah.
gonna go
You're
enjoy
welcome.
some
Enjoy
coffee.
your day.
All right, Mark. Thanks. Until
Bye.
next time, man. Cheers. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe with the notifications turned on. The Strong Stoic podcast is also available in audio wherever you listen to your podcasts. Finally, you can join Substack to gain access to transcripts, articles, and premium podcast episodes.